Hello, everyone, and welcome. First of all, thanks to the organizers of the Unframe Festival and to Boom for providing this space and opportunity, especially in such critical times when spaces for dialogue and reflection are most needed amid the rise of authoritarianism. I am deeply honored to have the opportunity to engage in a conversation with two truly remarkable voices, Yasemin Acar and Louna Sbou, who will be joining us through a video message. Before we begin, allow me to briefly introduce them. Yasemin Acar is a Berlin-based human rights activist whose work lies at the intersection of social justice, refugee rights, and the fight against anti-Muslim racism. She co-founded Berlin Arrival Support during the Ukraine War, where she mobilized volunteers and advised the Berlin Senate. A steadfast advocate for Palestine, Yasemin also serves on the steering committee of the Freedom Flotilla and is a co-founder of the global Sumud Floatilla. Louna Sbou is a curator, mentor, and cultural manager and currently serves as the director of Uyun, a Berlin-based cultural center dedicated to queer feminist, decolonial, and class-critical perspectives. As a queer Muslim woman of Moroccan Amazigh heritage, she weaves together artistic research, collective and non-Western curating practices, and international solidarity. Beyond her inspiring work at Uyun, she has also been an active member of the global Sumud Floatilla. My name is Khaled El Mahmoud, and it is my privilege to moderate today's discussion. I'm an international legal scholar, and I look forward to guiding our exchange as we reflect together on the theme our distinguished speakers will share. Today's discussion invites us to reflect on the transformative power of solidarity and collective action. The global Sumud Floatilla stands as both a political and ethical practice, one that brings together activists, artists, and beyond communities in a shared commitment to justice, dignity, and liberation. To open our discussion, we will first hear from Louna through her video message. Following that, we will continue our conversation with Yasemin.
Azul and Salam Butterflies, thank you Unframe Festival for inviting me. Special thanks to Boom for being badass and steadfast, and everyone who's been attending and making all of this possible. I would love to be with you all right now, seated next to Yasemin and Khaled, hi, but I also really enjoy being away from Germany. My name is Louna Sbou. I'm a cultural worker and co-founder for Uyun in Berlin, which was a physical space in Neukölln and now operates as a hybrid platform, a shift that was forced by defunding eviction and state repression. Our body of work centers anti-colonial, queer feminist and class-critical perspectives and transnational solidarity, which is why we're currently in Indonesia learning from movements, spaces and collectives like Wangrupa, Good School and Taring Party. It's also why we feel so close to the global Sumud Flotilla and had the privilege to join the most recent mission where we sailed to Gaza. The Global Sumud Floatilla, being a non-violent and civilian-led mission, was also created by people of the global majority. Our objectives are clear. It's to break Israel's illegal siege on Gaza and to stop the complicity of our governments in the ongoing genocide, the ecocide, the ethnic cleansing, and the forced starvation. It's to open a humanitarian corridor and to deliver urgently needed aid. We organized and set sail from 4 different countries and ports in Spain, Tunisia, Italy, and Greece, with initially more than 60 boats and 500 people from 44 countries, which I'm mentioning now as it might be relevant in a few minutes. I was part of the German delegation based in Sicily and worked as an organizer aboard of Paula 1. Overall, we spent about 6 weeks on land and at sea. We had some serious delays as we needed to make adjustments in response to weather conditions, but also Israel's drone attacks and other attempts of intimidation and psychological warfare. It was on the evening of October 1st where the Israeli Navy began their attacks, interception and kidnapping on international waters. They threatened to shoot us, took control over the boats and dragged us to Ashdod port and then Ksiot prison and the Negev deserts. Those 6 days there were shaped by verbal, sexual, psychological and physical abuse and violence. Some of us have already shared these details, but I want us to be reminded there's been Palestinian bodies that Israel and its allies have been using to test and push the limits of whatever atrocities humanity and technology is capable of. Today, there are more than 9,000 Palestinian detainees in Israeli torture prisons, including 400 children, 1/3 without trial or charges, no or limited access to food, medicine, and water. Well, the same goes for an additional unspecified number of Gaza detainees held in army-run camps. Palestinians are being erased. They don't even exist in numbers, and we can only imagine what they're going through every single day. In the prison next to us, a 22-year-old photographer, Ahmed Khdeira, was held for 5 months without trials or charges. He suffered from hunger, from low blood sugar and scabies. On the day of our release, he died. Allah yarhamu. Ahmed becomes the 78th prisoner to die in Israeli custody since October 2023. Israel Security Minister Ben Gvir said that gang rape of Palestinians was permissible. He also drafted a law on the death penalty for Palestinian detainees, and that bill was approved by the Knesset. How is that considered a democracy? My shipmate Phil Butland, a Jewish-American artist, said that in Israeli detention, she was treated like scum.
In a way that like you read about in books about the Holocaust.
And how it was not difficult to compare Israelis to Nazis. I can feel Germans twitching and screaming, do you have a written document? Ja, never again, or Holocaust-Relativierung. Or maybe we can leave it up to historians and genocide scholars to decide. As you can see, the public discourse and narrative around Israel, Germany, the US, and other allies are shifting drastically, effectively, and internationally. The Global Sumud Floatilla is one out of many and urgent missions that are contributing to global awareness, shifting the world's focus back on Gaza, exposing how Israel blocks aid, press, and activists in international waters, all of which is absolutely illegal, and serving as documented cases for international law bodies like the ICJ. Also, the mobilization was massive as we were intercepted. In Italy, over 2 million people took part in a general strike and linked protests and direct actions across more than 100 cities, including Rome and Milan. I think the same happened in Spain and France and Germany and Switzerland, as far as Abya in Asia. Almost 5 million emails were sent to government officials demanding safe passage. Imagine working at the Swedish Foreign Office and waking up to 70,000 emails. Also, the broad participation from high-profile figures to the most ordinary people led to global solidarity and support from foreign ministers of several nations. Overall demonstrated a strong and transnational civil society commitment to the Palestinian cause. And of course, while the IOF was busy with us, fishermen in Gaza were able to catch loads of fishies. It's like a domino effect, visible internationalist pressure on one state can spark others to act, especially those with stronger political influence. And resistance must be international because repression is international. The same regimes of surveillance, militarism, and racial capitalism that cage Palestinians also police black and brown communities in Europe, criminalize migrants, and target indigenous struggles. Israel's blockade of Gaza is not an exception. It's part of a global architecture of colonial violence. The flotilla made this visible, feminists, climate justice activists, sea rescue workers, cultural workers, medical networks were not separated by issue, but united on one front against settler colonialism. And this is what collective liberation means. We refuse to see Palestine as elsewhere. The siege on Gaza is linked to the rise of fascism, to the border violence in the Mediterranean and the extractive economies in the Congo, to the brutal ethnic cleansing in Sudan. Remaining capable of action under fear requires us to reject isolation. Our movements are and must remain collective. In Germany, a Nazi-era law still bans general strikes, but unions are beginning to understand how political strikes and workers' rights cannot be separated. This was inspired by Italy's uprising. Protests on the streets do more than demand policy shifts. They interrupt erasure. They expose police violence. They connect Palestine to every front line of the struggle. And pressure on politicians, especially in Germany, must go beyond symbolic gestures. Germany is complicit. No matter how much the Foreign Office tried to distance itself from becoming a part of the conflict in Gaza, as it was continuously called to action during the kidnapping of flotilla members, it arms Israel, shields it diplomatically, and criminalizes solidarity for Palestine. That is why escalation is necessary. Unions must refuse to keep economies running smoothly while genocides continue. Cultural workers must follow PACBI, the Palestinian campaign for the academic and cultural boycott of Israel. Artists, cultural workers, and institutions must refuse to normalize apartheid. We must practice BDS, boycott, divestment, sanctions, as it remains one of the most powerful non-violent tools that we have as a strategy of mass refusal, making complicity too costly for governments, corporations, and institutions. We must reject silence, escalate, strike, boycott, disrupt, because steadfastness, Sumud, is not passive endurance, it's active refusal and collective liberation. It's always power to the people. Thank you.
I think we can all agree that this was a very strong message, which I personally am very thankful for. And building on what Louna has so powerfully shared, we see how the global Sumud Floatilla stands not only as a mission of humanitarian aid, but as a profound act of collective resistance, one that exposes injustice and mobilizes transnational solidarity. Dear Yasemin, you have twice taken part in flotilla missions aiming to reach Gaza in order to challenge the maritime blockade and deliver humanitarian aid. On both occasions, the vessels, as we all know, were intercepted by Israeli military forces in international waters, and you were subsequently abducted and illegally incarcerated, acts that have been described by numerous international legal experts as flagrant violations of international law. Despite not having reached the shores of Gaza, you did not relent. Following the earlier flotilla interceptions, you assumed a leading role in expanding and institutionalizing maritime civil resistance. As a core organizer, you helped to found the global Sumud Floatilla movement, which represents the most extensive civilian maritime initiative directed towards Gaza to date. Under your coordination, the movement brought together over 200 different civil society organizations and advocacy groups or delegations from over 45 countries, including national coalitions from Europe, the Middle East, Africa, Latin America, and the Asia-Pacific, truly global. The global Sumud Floatilla launched what has been described as the largest civilian fleet in solidarity with Gaza, comprising 42 vessels and involving 462 participants. Your leadership in the global Sumud Floatilla movement illustrates how grassroots and indigenous-led narratives of resistance and solidarity can crystallize into structured forms of transnational activism. Your work demonstrates how maritime space can function as both a symbolic and legal site of contestation, where claims grounded in international law intersect with lived experiences of genocide, occupation, displacement, and collective perseverance. You chose the term Sumud, a word that, as you know, carries deep historical and emotional resonance in the Palestinian experience. Could you share why you chose the term Sumud for this movement and what it means to you personally, and also reflect on how such rapid global mobilization became possible, what you learned through building this network, and what valuable lessons you think are important for future struggles for justice and solidarity?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Thank you for this very good question, and very happy to be here. First and foremost, we have to look at, as you described, this word Sumud is very important in the history of Palestine and for Palestinians, as I learned. And in a world where Palestinian identity and culture is collectively, they're trying to collectively erase it. It is important that when we are in solidarity with people under oppression, that we use their terms, their culture, to bring that forward and to remind the world that we are against the erasure of the culture or the identity of a people. So, and Sumud translated literally into English means steadfastness. And global Sumud Floatilla, I mean, why global? Because it's globally, there's a global uprising for Palestinians, and across the globe there is so much. We see resistance through demonstrations, through direct action, through BDS. And so we wanted to show the world that we stand with Palestinians in their steadfastness. And so this is literally the heart of Palestinian resistance, Sumud. And Sumud also means the refusal to disappear, refusal to surrender dignity, and most importantly, the insistence of life and justice under occupation and under unimaginable conditions. And as actually I was smiling earlier because Louna said exactly what I was gonna say as well, that Sumud is not passive endurance. It's active, it's collective, it's rooted. And it basically means to standing firm and refusing genocide and occupation as fate. And we wanted to show that with this direct action. So coming back to the global Sumud Floatilla and why it grew so quickly, I must say, when I was imprisoned, when we were intercepted in international waters while we were sailing with the Madeleine, which was the first ever boat to sail during the genocide, we already started working on this idea. We said, this needs a global, like, we have to come together globally. And I remember coming back to Berlin and literally starting the very next day to work, which Khaled, he's my friend and he knows. And for 2 months, we worked really, really hard, day and night, bringing these groups together from all walks of life, from across the globe. It wasn't easy, but I knew it could be done. And so, and I have to also add, a lot of people said that we are crazy, that this is impossible, that we can't do that, especially in 2 months. And we basically said, watch us. And and that is actually also why it reached why it became what it became, as the whole world saw, is because the people around the world, they reached a breaking point. And just watching live stream genocide for 2 years, demonstrating and being criminalized for peacefully demonstrating, there is this sense of like not knowing what to do anymore. And also we saw governments not only failing to stop it, but deliberately and directly enabling this genocide, especially here in Germany, the second largest weapons supplier to this genocide. Germany is not only, they're financially supporting it, they're supporting it with weapons, politically, but also morally. So, yes, and again, when institutions collapse morally, this is when civil society has to step in. And you asked about strength, where the strength came. Basically, we get this question a lot, like where is the strength coming from? And really, it's we started. Everything starts with trust. So building trust, centering principles, and inviting people not to follow us, but become a global front of conscience, standing against oppression, against apartheid, against settler colonialism, and global capitalism. And we learned a lot during this process in those 2 months. I mean, I personally was at sea for, I think, 5 weeks, and the whole process, 2 months working, doing the prior work, and then also, being there for 2 months and dealing with a lot of things, including attacks, like drone attacks, sabotage, lots of sabotage, Zionist sabotage. But, what I learned, what was very important, yet so simple, is that people are ready to act. When we started, we had 30,000, like up to 30,000 people signing up to be on this mission. And right now, even though everyone heard about the torture that we've gone through and have seen everything, the attacks, and knowing the dangers of like going to the belly of the beast, basically, yet we have now 60,000 people signed up for the next mission. And that just shows you, that people are ready when given a vehicle to act for solidarity and resistance. They just need this vehicle, and this is what we try to create with this movement. And also, when movements are grounded in values, not ego or branding, they basically grow beyond borders.
There's also... I'm not sure whether I can entirely reproduce this reference that you normally make by quoting Malcolm X about organization, but I think it would be quite fitting.
Yeah, I love Malcolm X. Like I love so many other figures from, different movements that came before us. And he said, we are not outnumbered. We are basically out-organized. And so this is why, creating these movements is so important, because really, I mean, we've seen it for 2 years, worldwide. It's not about the numbers. It's just about organizing ourselves.
So if we shift our focus from the global Sumud Floatilla to activism here in Germany, we've seen 2 years of relentless and continuous demonstrations. Yet we all and many activists feel that meaningful political transformation remains limited. You've spoken about the need for escalation when protest alone is no longer enough. Could you explain what escalation means to you in this context and how it connects to questions of privilege, comfort, and the limits of solidarity here in Germany?
When I came back from the Madeleine, I had some interviews, and there's Zionist media, German media. They heard me saying, "We will escalate," and I said it very clear that we will escalate. And then there were smear campaigns saying, "What does she mean by escalating? Is she gonna attack? But no, that's not what it is. We have shown the world what escalation means. But why do we need to escalate when the state? I mean, especially here in Germany, being in how many of you have faced police violence here? Yeah, I faced also a lot of police violence, and not just me, but hundreds of activists have faced police violence for just simply protesting against genocide, which is common sense, you would think, but apparently it's not in Germany, not when we have something called Staatsräson. So when the state refuses to respond to peaceful protest, especially during a genocide, especially when the very state is funding the genocide, escalation becomes a democratic and moral obligation. By escalation, again, I don't mean violence, but I also would like to add, I'm not condemning armed resistance by the people that are going through this oppression. So we have to distinguish between those two. But what I mean is shifting from symbolic protests to actions that disrupt complicity. That could mean, challenging institutions, blocking the machinery that enables genocide and oppression, and building real grassroots power. And concerning about the challenges in Germany and privilege, that's not actually. It's not such a tough question. We just have to have real talk about that, real talk. In Germany, the specific barrier, in my opinion, a lot of people support Palestinians and the Palestinian cause emotionally, but solidarity or resistance stops where comfort begins, basically. And privilege creates the illusion that you can oppose injustice without confronting the very structures that sustain it. And true solidarity means, true solidarity to me, it means a lot of things, but to me it means, that you're willing to risk things. It could be reputational, it could be social, it could be, even legal. We're seeing what's happening in the UK. We're also seeing what's happening in Germany. But honestly, Palestinian lives are not less valuable than ours. And we always say that, but we have to actually show that in action, and that means you have to risk yeah, sometimes maybe losing a job, maybe going through lots of smear campaigns in the media, having your homes raided here in Germany. I know these are not pleasant things, and they're not just because they are rooted in injustice. But just because, you know, we should be able basically to say, at the end of the day, me or us going through that doesn't mean that we are going to lose our lives. Because really, when we are looking in the world, in Palestine, in Sudan, in Congo, in so many countries, and especially in the global south or the Middle East, people are facing or risking basically their lives just by existing. So me losing my job here, it's not going to make me stop. The police raiding my home is not going to make me stop. The Zionist media continuously smearing, you know, activists, especially Palestinians, shouldn't make us stop. We should risk these things, and we should continue, you know. And this is where Sumud comes in. And also, if our movement is to be effective, we have to move from performance to commitment, and from witnessing into intervention.
Thank you very much. So, with the announcement of Trump's 20-point plan, the peace plan, and the signing of the ceasefire, it seems that international attention once again beginning to shift away from Gaza. In Germany, Chancellor Friedrich Merz has even suggested there is now no reason to continue demonstrating, as in his words, there is now peace in Gaza. Yet this kind of narratives feel very familiar. We have seen it before, after Oslo during the Intifadas, moments when the world declared peace while the realities on the ground told a very different story. History also shows that it is often precisely when movements begin to grow, when solidarity networks expand and public awareness deepens, that they are halted by the rhetoric of peace. The declaration of peace, as after Oslo, tends to signal not genuine resolution, but a form of political closure that discourages mobilization and delegitimizes protest. Beneath the appearance of normalcy, structures of control and inequality remain intact, while the momentum of collective action is quietly contained. Yasemin, in this moment when peace is being declared, from ceasefire talks to Trump's new plan, what does the word mean to you, and how can movements like the global Sumud Floatilla, for instance, sustain solidarity when public attention fades and leaders claim there's no longer a reason to protest?
Well, first and foremost, this peace plan, or all the other plans, or the Oslo Accords, everything, as you mentioned as well before, they always take place in spaces where Palestinians are not invited to the table. They always happen or being discussed or put in place in the absence of the very people that it concerns. And also, who is Trump? Who is Merz to talk about, to ever use the word peace? In the existence, or since, the interception of the land of the United States, in 249 years, the United States has engaged in more than 500 military operations. I mean, that on itself says everything, what they think of peace, or if they even have knowledge of peace. You cannot bomb people into peace. That's not going to happen. So, to me, peace without justice is literally not. It's not peace. It is the continuation of violence, just by other means, and we're seeing this. We're seeing this right now. When we were in prison, my only concern. I mean, I have many concerns, but we were cut out from the world. And I remember, while we were sailing towards the end of it, this 20-point peace plan. When I read it, I mean, I wanted to jump off that ship. Like, it was insane to it was dystopian. And so when I continuously asked the not the IOF, but the officers there, what's happening outside? Is this peace plan, like, what's up with the peace plan? What's going on? Is there a ceasefire? And so when we arrived here, immediately after, they agreed on the ceasefire, but then, there are many other things happening on the, like, politically, in the political sphere. And, I just thought to myself, there was nothing to celebrate about the ceasefire, because how many times did Israel violate the very ceasefire? And we're seeing this again. In 3 weeks, hundreds of Palestinians have been murdered. Children have been murdered. Humanitarian aid is not getting in. There are institutions discussing who's going to build Gaza. It's again like global capitalism, right? And so as we were all worried, and we've seen it, it's not there to bring peace. It's just like kind of to, further annex or further occupy and erase a whole people. So when leaders declare peace while blockade, apartheid, occupation remain in place, they're basically asking the world to normalize Palestinian dispossession. And so the oppressor will never bring peace. Certainly not Matt or Trump. Peace, where there is peace, where there is justice, peace is a given. So even in our like collective resistance outside of across the world, I've certainly never spoken about peace. But forget me. Ask Palestinians what they want. And Palestinians will tell you that their fight is for liberation, a free Palestine, equality, and so many more things. So we really have to ask what peace means to Palestinians. To me, peace means a lot of things. But in terms of Palestine, I would maybe say that that it would be freedom of movement. We all know what's happening in Gaza, and for 18 years this has been going on. If you knew about Palestine prior to 7th of October, it would be the right to return. So many Palestinians, like yourself as well, are living in a diaspora, and even here they are criminalized. Even here, the persecution of Palestinians reminds one of how Jewish people may have felt, in the beginnings. So it would also, peace also means dignity, which, that's probably the most important thing to peace, dignity, that you can live in dignity. It means self-determination in the case of Palestine, and definitely land back. That is what peace would mean to me. But there you see, first justice needs to be served, right? And it also means dismantling the dismantling of apartheid structures, and not managing them more gently. And this is what we are seeing right now with this 20-point peace plan. They're trying to manage violence, occupation, apartheid. This is not peace. And there comes in the global Sumud Floatilla. The global Sumud Floatilla, we are continuing our work, and it will continue because our solidarity is not tied to headlines. It's tied to principle, and most importantly, to people. Attention may fade, but our commitment does not fade. And we will stay organized. We stay present. That's why the demonstrations are still going on. Direct actions are still taking place. People are still demanding the halt on weapon delivery, that Israel is sanctioned, not because, well, they're still firing their missiles and everything, but even if they say they won't and that there's a permanent ceasefire, the occupation didn't stop. So that's why, you know, we have to keep building our global networks and don't depend on the news cycle, because the news will they will try to confuse you, and this is what we've been seeing for so long, you know. And also the media could have stopped the genocide. The media plays a big role in all of this, and at the end of I really hope that all of the journalists, especially here in Germany, that they will be brought to justice. And finally, yeah, we should not react to political announcements, rather keep pushing until freedom is real and not declared, and until Palestinians say that it's over.
Thank you so much for this most insightful conversation. We would like to open the floor now for questions from the audience. So if you do have questions, please raise your hands and try and keep your questions as brief as possible so we can have as much engagement as possible. There should be someone walking around with a mic.
I think this one.
Hi everyone. Hi Yasemin. Yeah. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Palestinian photojournalist. I was in Gaza. Yasemin invited me to here. Actually, it's not easy to be here because I'm Palestinian and I have a Palestinian passport from Gaza, was in genocide. So never can accept me in any Europe country. But I'm here now. So when we see you to speak about Palestine, when you see Yasemin and all the guys speak and make a protest and make everything for Palestine, my people in Gaza actually, we are 2 years ago alone, really alone. And now after when we see anything outside Palestine, we don't care. We just need to stop the war. But now, after when I left Gaza and I be in Europe country and I have photo exhibition everywhere and talking about Palestine, when I see people, when I share everything for my people in Gaza, for our journalists in Gaza, you give us the hope. So really, you give us the hope. Keep going. Don't give up about talking for Palestine. And thank you, everyone. This is genocide. It's not war. Genocide. And if you think the war now is stopped, no. If you think we have ceasefire, no. After ceasefire, we have another war. Every family, every single family in Gaza have a pain. Like my family. I lost a lot from my family. I lost my home, my school, my university, my favorite restaurant in Gaza. We lost everything. We lost the past. Now all my life in just memory in phone or photo. So, but we never give up. We keep fight to freedom, to peace. When he asked the peace is a freedom. When we see Gaza freedom, when we see Palestine free, when I come back to my homeland, I'm not from Gaza. My family is a refugee from Ascalon city. It's close for Gaza. It's a very beautiful city. And when we finish the occupation, it's a peace, actually. So just I say thank you, Yasemin, and thank you everyone to be here and keep going. Never give up to talk about Gaza. Thank you all.
Maybe we collect like 2 or 3 questions for the first round. Yeah, there's someone.
Yeah, I arrived a bit late, so I hope that what I'm going to ask is not something you already talked about, but I wanted to ask what you think are the chances of mobilizing in a way like Palestine Action in Germany, maybe throughout the brave people that also joined the flotilla, because I know that like I personally wouldn't have the courage to do neither to join the flotilla or actually like disrupt weapon factories, but what are the chances that something in that direction could start also here?
I think there's also a question over here in the front.
Thank you. Actually, a connected question. When you said that you have about 60,000 people signing up right now, I wonder, is that for actually joining the ships, basically? Because it seems I could imagine that action that is so outwardly purposeful actually gathers a lot of attention, people who want to partake in it to gain that sense of agency, basically. But I wonder where there might be, where you have capabilities lacking in the organization, which kind of capacities you need, where you need more people, what you have enough people for, and so on.
I think there's one more question here.
Well, if I understood you correctly, you said that our government is failing to stop the genocide, and I was wondering what you mean by that and how you come to that conclusion that our government is failing to do so.
Thank you for the questions, especially the last question. So the first question was about Palestine Action. I'm so sorry I couldn't hear you clearly. So you were asking, did you hear? Like,
I mean, I also had problems to fully grasp your question, but I think it was about mobilization in Germany, joining the flotilla, and also how to disrupt the weapon industry, if I understood correctly.
Yeah, so there is something called Palestine Action Germany, and they have done amazing things. I'm not sure who's all in this room, and the cameras are rolling, so I wouldn't give you like openly suggestions what to do and how to do it, especially not here. But Palestine Action, Palestine Action has been there for many, many years. Because we always say that it did not start on 7th of October. Palestinians themselves from Gaza directly. And actually, thank you for your words, Abdurrahman. They're saying it, I just want to add to this. So the flotilla, for example, has been sailing since 2008 because they imposed the illegal siege on Gaza in 2007. What we've seen on 7th of October was a retaliation to the siege. So with the flotilla, this is what we are upholding. We are upholding this promise that we will break the siege, right? And everything to break the siege, like the weapon industry, right? They are continuing the siege by sending weapons because they are helping this occupation to occupy with violence, with weapons, and so the siege cannot be broken. And when I said earlier that we have to be willing to lose, quote unquote, lose things, then that means that you go into, that you find where these groups are, what your target is, and how you will disrupt that, and you continue, you grow from there. I wouldn't want to say anything further. But we can have a conversation later on. But does that answer your question?
I don't think you can answer my question. So
Okay, we'll have a conversation then later on if you want. That was your question. So yes, 60,000 people signed up. That means 60,000 people signed up with their delegate. So they sign up from around the globe, and we have, as Khaled also said earlier, we have 45. Like in this past mission, we had 45 delegations, meaning from 45 different countries. So then you find this delegation in your respective country, and you link up with them. And a lot of people, they want to participate in these missions. And while you are on when you come as a participant to the mission, you are you have a boat, and then we need organizers, and that's when you learn. So what we always try to do in these missions, and what I've always what I like to do throughout my activism for many years, I always try to teach. Because you can do something, you can do an action, but then what is that action going to do if you are not growing, if you are not teaching people how to, continue these actions? And yes, we need people. Obviously, we always need people that have different talents. And we had people, they left their jobs and. Like in IT and stuff, and they created like these websites, these apps that we just need so many things, but. The things we need, we also learn as we go about the action. But if you're interested, there is a delegation here in Germany, so you just have to contact them over Instagram, and you are all very welcome and invited to join. There's never enough people. The last question I remember very well. Were you serious with that question? No, I'm really genuinely asking.
No, because you say that our government is failing, but I would say that you can only fail if it's your mission to do so. And I don't think it's Germany's intention to stop the genocide, so they can't fail.
Yes. Okay. So I was like, it can't be that he's like literally asking. So good that I asked. And you are absolutely right. When I say they are failing, and that is correct. And we have to thank you. This is actually a very important conversation to be had, because no, we're not failing, because we never had the intention to stop it. That's correct, right? And that would be it. Like Germany was never, or I always say Germany is not only supporting this genocide, they're literally partaking in this genocide. And therefore, their intention is never to stop it, but to continue the genocide, obviously for very racist reasons, because death always looks better on Middle Eastern, brown, black, Arab, Muslim people body than on other people, Western, for example. I was very active in the Ukraine movement. I basically built, I co-founded Berlin's Arrival Support, and if you remember, when people opened their homes to Ukrainians, and that was, I came up with that idea the very day when the first bomb fell, and that idea materialized, and so I mobilized 15,000 volunteers only in Berlin, and then it swapped over to many different cities and also countries, and obviously the state capitalized on that idea to make money. They actually really did. It was to me, it was very shocking, but also nice to see that people are willing to help. But then I would ask myself, like, why is it so easy to open up your home to Western-looking people? Would you do the same for Syrians, Afghans, Palestinians? I think the answer is very clear: no. So, sorry, I went a complete different direction. But to bring it back, Germany had the intention to help Ukrainians. That's why they did not fail. Because if you have the intention to help as a state, you will never fail, because you have every tool to your disposal to stop something, to help someone, to, you know. So you're right. Like, they never had the intention to stop this genocide, and that therefore they are continuing. Thank you for that good question.
As an international legal scholar, I do feel compelled to recall that Germany is under an obligation not only to prevent the genocide, but also to withhold from assisting and aiding, which it is doing. So it clearly should have the intention of stopping the genocide, but whatever, leaving that apart. It seems that this is too complicated for the German government to grasp. So yeah, this brings us to the end of our conversation. And dear Yasemin, I would like to ask you if you have any final thoughts that you would like to leave us with. Maybe something optimistic within all of this despair. I know this is a very big task, but...
Oh, no, actually not. You know, you'll see me with a lot of rage, and when I speak, and but I am actually a very optimistic person, because it is hope that, you know, wakes us up every morning. I mean, for me at least, coming back to Germany, when I was deported, you know, everyone was really excited to go back. I'm like, oh shit, I'm going into another shit here, like, you know. But still, I still have this hope that something will change in Germany, and I know, looking back at history, you know, at some point they will say, oh, we were all against it. I was at a demonstration one time, and, you know, I did speak about that. Like, I think that justice will prevail, and I believe that, looking at the world right now, and so many amazing, beautiful human beings from all walks of life, different beliefs, you know, just different people, they understand that what makes us, they understand the common goal. And the common goal is really humanity at the end of the day. Yes, we're asking for justice. Yes, we're asking, you know, some people are asking for peace. But at the end of the day, who is justice for? Who is peace for? It's for human beings. And so, yes, justice will prevail, but justice can only prevail through humanity. So let us always remember our humanity.
Thank you, Yasemin. Thank you, Louna, although you are not here. And thank you, and thanks to Boom, and thanks to the organizers of the festival.